Stand for the pledge.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Welcome to our regular meeting of the 16th of February. We need to convene the Board of Equalization and Review for the last time this year. I understand that we have a couple of matters to hear in that regard. Is Mr. Love present?
He is not going to come. He decided not to go forward with this petition.
Okay, are there any others? Is that the gentleman who's already here? We have to make a decision. Okay. I don't think I don't see his.
It was just this week, and Eddie and I were back and forth, and he advised yesterday that he would be here.
Okay. What is the amount of the increase on this property?
Which one are you looking at? Because he has two.
Oh, is that why there were two in there? Why don't you just tell us each, both of them?
Increase on the property in the New district was about $25 monetary value, $960 taxable value. The one that he has in Fayetteville district went up about $34 in monetary value and $1,020 in assessed value, which we have adjusted since.
Since he got his letter, we adjusted a little bit.
Okay, what are the adjustments now?
That wasn't just correct.
So,
Yes, that is the current taxable value.
so what you just told us are the
Correct.
correct taxable values.
I had a question. You said city of Fayetteville. So their taxes are a lot higher than everybody else's in Fayette County anyway. Is that part of this, what he's?
Let's swear everybody in. Will everybody who's going to give testimony before this board, please raise their hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, to help you God? All right. Let's try that again.
There's only two that swear themselves in.
I know. We need you guys to swear yourselves in too, please. Can you raise your hands? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. I didn't have my glasses on, so I could just see the two in the front.
I can
Okay.
see, but hearing's a different story.
So, Mr. Assessor, you were saying that you guys have already made adjustments, and these amounts of $25 for the New Haven property and $34 for the Fayetteville property were the adjustments you made, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and then you were saying this part of it was in Fayetteville?
Was some of this property in Fayetteville? I think you mentioned Fayetteville.
Yes, behind the Walmart.
So was that part of the assessment? I know Fayetteville has a tax too. I just want to understand it.
Okay, I'll tell you how you see this property. Drive behind Walmart. Go behind the automotive center. And there's a fence all the way around it, and there's a break in the trees. Look straight down over the hill, and there it is.
Okay. All right. So it was part of, I'm just curious, as part of the assessments Fedville has, correct? On the- So we have nothing to do with Fedville, correct?
Yeah, no, you did.
So we do. Okay, I didn't know that. I thought the city,
No,
I
you-
thought the municipality.
As a board of equalization, you have the whole county.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I was wanting to make sure I understood it. I didn't.
Right.
Okay, I understand.
When you made the adjustments that you made to get to these numbers, did you adjust down?
Yes. Only because, the property is not, it doesn't have good accessibility. And there were a couple creeks that went through. The assessor actually went out himself and reviewed this property behind Walmart, and it's not really developable like you would say the rest of them would be. So we kind of sit it down for a little bit due to that reason. And we adjusted the one in New Haven. We kind of went around and looked at all the comparable properties around him and took his down to match what was around him. So that's why we adjusted those.
We have forestalled the decision on the other property too, the guy from the valley. We need to make a decision on his. Can you hear me, John?
Mhm.
We need to make a decision on the valley property as well.
Okay.
Do you guys want to discuss this any further?
To me, I would go with what the assessor recommends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning to. Let's let them. Did you guys want to speak?
Properties. Top of the map. No road going to it. No timber. No utilities. Have to pass through Tommy Advisor's property to get to it. So if any increase on that property tax, it's not gonna happen. You understand why? I have to pay more for this. The property out here at Fayetteville is a dumping area with runoff from the water. Walmart. You can only get on the thing without milk. It's not passable by 4-wheeler. It's worthless. It's my property. I bought the first plot of farm 20 years ago. I sold it for the worth of it right now. I couldn't pay for the taxes I paid for it the first 20 years. So what that said,
What's the increase on the property behind Walmart?
One of them is $25 and the other is $34. The Mountain Goat property is, I think, the $25.
If I may, we do have that in Woodland, which is our cheapest land evaluation. So there's not really a whole lot lower than you could go than what we have in now.
So they're getting taxed the same amount as anyone else with similarly undevelopable woodland property.
All woodland in Fayette County.
Yeah.
I hate to do that, but it did because of what the property was.
Yeah, it did.
And just like the one that he had across the river. I understand what he's saying, but in 2010, he paid $25,000 for that property. People, and that's some of that is driving prices up in this county. You know, people pay X amount of dollars for something, then, and you got a lot of that going on. You have to raise your values. And that's what
there's something to be said about it. Mr. Myers, he on the road in there. He didn't want me to get in there. Okay. I look. He felt nice about it at the end. What if he did on his farm? What the deal was. What? That's what we use.
Okay, any change? It's, well, from my part, while I definitely sympathize with your situation, given that everyone's value has gone up due to the park and everything else, I'm gonna side with the assessor on this. He has done his best to keep the taxes low to the point where he's been getting a lot of angry calls. We finally had to raise them, not from you guys, of course, but on some other properties. So that's my position. That is a-
I'll second.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we go with regard to the Blake petitions, New Haven and Fayetteville properties with the assessor's new assessment of the value. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And let's go ahead and just, do you have the name of the guy who was here before? I think I have. Okay, I probably do. Hold on a second here.
Yes.
Ed Garbett. Yeah. Allison, it's Ed Garbett.
Ed
Garbett. Garbett. I wasn't here, yeah, but I was talking.
It'll be prettier after I get done. Okay, and my analysis stands for the property of Mr. Ed Garbett, who was here on, what day was he here? The
31st.
31st of January.
Yeah.
I move that we support the assessor's new assessment of Mr. Garbett's property in the valley.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Sorry, Tom.
That's okay.
All right.
I'm still in rare form today, so.
And is there anything else that needs to come before this board today?
This isn't,
All right. In that case, then we'll convene for the year, the Board of Equalization and Review.
And
Adjourn sine die,
any other order to sign.
which means I'm adjourning it.
Yeah.
Until the end of the year.
I just wanted to make sure.
Speak
you got that
English
last
instead
part.
of Latin.
Yeah.
What?
So I'm just trying to speak English instead of Latin. I don't have Jim Keenan here to translate for me. Right? They don't even teach it anymore. Okay, all that done. Okay, do we have any exonerations, orders to combine or divide, or refunds?
It's not red.
I mean blue.
Okay.
So,
I'm sorry.
Are you-
we have one request for consolidation, and it's for Michael D. Tony to consolidate two pieces of his property into one piece of his property. So I'm going to move that we approve it.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. What?
You said two pieces of property into one pieces of property.
Oh, I said pieces. Oops.
That's okay.
Y'all knew what I meant.
Yes, we did.
That one was had been a county board split. And I think that mobile home one, well, they got rid of the mobile home.
Okay.
Need to give that to Tom.
And, all right, vouchers and invoices. Ruth,
Thanks, folks.
what do you have for us?
The only one on there that's looks out of the ordinary is that Drager one, but it's, you guys approved at a prior meeting. It's modifications to their buildings at the fire training center.
Yeah.
This was approved a while back, so everything else is,
So it's just now being expended.
yeah.
All right, I move we approve the vouchers and invoices.
No second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we don't have the meeting minutes. Amy, do you need me to send you the ones from the 31st to look at? I haven't seen the one for the 10th.
And, okay. Let me see what I sent you the last 2 meetings. From the 10th for the.
Do we meet on the 4th or something?
We did.
Yeah, I
I
haven't.
have a short set and Jamie has that short set and she's off and I was off and so. the last 2 meetings.
Well, Abby did the ones on the 31st. And then can you just make sure Amy gets all of them and then she can send them to me all together? Okay, estate settlements.
Man, another list.
Yep, Mr. David Bruce Barnhart, Billie Jean Bates, James David Barry, Robert Lee Cavalier, John Lawrence Puckett, and Ethel Marie Scarborough. I move that we approve these estate settlements.
1 second.
All those in favor? Okay. What's this, notice of election officials and emergency absentee?
There's, you guys have to notice how many election officials, which are the poll workers that we'll need for the election, which is 195. 5 for each of the 39 precincts. We choose our early voting poll workers from that existing list.
Okay.
There are 6 of them, but they're included in that.
Is there a,
There's
Is there-
an order. I forgot to print it.
okay, so we'll just skip that and you ready to go to your presentation?
Well, there is another.
What
the other
about-
order, the emergency order? I've got the emergency order.
What
Was
about
there another
Bruce
one that you were
enact?
supposed to-
It's on there.
Yeah, that's exhibit A. I thought I would just skip it for the time being and get back to it.
Yeah.
There's a second order, which is a policy extending the emergency absentee voting procedures.
Okay,
There is, so the code, and you guys just have to say that this is okay, which is extending it to hospitals or other duly licensed healthcare facilities within this county or an adjacent county. So if someone within the emergency absentee ballot period, which is that the week before the election to election day, is put in the hospital and they haven't already voted, there's a procedure for that. Or nursing homes, who was put in nursing home. There's also a third option that was added, that I kind of wanted you guys to decide if you wanted this or not. If someone is confined to their home because of illness within that emergency absentee ballot period, we could send emergency ballot commissioners to their home. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do any of those if you don't want. I mean, that's up to the commission to decide where we want to send, but we would send, and you will be naming emergency ballot commissioners later on, a couple weeks, and they would be responsible for traveling the areas with the ballots on election day, if that is something that. I would recommend the first two, the third to send them to people's homes, but that's, you guys can decide, debate. I don't really have an opinion on that.
is there a criteria?
I would support the first two. That's what we normally.
I think it got added with COVID a couple years, but it's in the code. It's one of the 3, there's 3 things. Or I guess if you were, I forget what, maybe in home, I think actually there's home confinement, but if you're in home confinement, you probably.
Well, depending
Depends on,
on,
I guess.
depends on why.
Wouldn't the first 2 cover the third
Yes,
in a roundabout way, wouldn't it?
yes.
If someone is sick enough that they're in the hospital or a nursing home, I mean, I guess you could be that sick and be at your home too, but.
Home health, like you say, somebody is going through chemo and can't leave
Yeah.
their home.
So can they request an absentee ballot for that?
They can.
This is for people that say, the last day you can request an absentee ballot is May the 3rd. So say on May the 4th, Melvin, fell off the steps out here.
Oh,
And, I mean, and he couldn't get to and he's in the hospital.
Right.
Those people can now, and he hadn't already voted. They can now request an emergency absentee, and two ballot commissioners would go to wherever they are with the ballot on election day.
Yeah,
So that's what, it's just for those people, we might have one, we've had, one or two an election that affects. So
How many, I mean, how would you administer the third option if,
the same way that person would request, and we would then send the two ballot commissioners to their home to administer the ballot.
It would be the ballot commissioners that we've,
They're appointed separately, and I don't even know who our people are for that. Larry Dawson was it forever, obviously. I don't remember them working on last election.
so it wouldn't be the same ones.
there were two nurses that did it, but I cannot remember their names.
Sorry.
And last time we didn't have any through it. Time before, I think we had one.
Yeah, it's a very limited use. It's just.
Yeah.
Because most people, if they're that ill, will go ahead and vote, or they'll go ahead and request a regular absentee. This is just, it's very small cases.
I usually default on the side of giving as many people access to voting as possible. And I mean, I would go for all three options, just especially given the current climate with new variants coming around and people who are otherwise vulnerable, like who are going through chemo and things who are now more vulnerable because of the virus, like leaving their homes if they're getting home care. I mean, they might be able to predict it, but some, I think it would be a small percentage. That's my view though, but let my colleagues weigh in because we might not agree.
Well, I think the first two would cover the three, but I don't see any difference in doing all three of them, so it wouldn't.
I agree.
Okay, so I'm move that we approve the extending the emergency absentee voting procedures in the three manners that the clerk just presented.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay.
Well, do you want me to?
Change the wording?
Yeah.
Give me the third.
The third one is just, I will double check the code if you want. And then
Yeah, you guys can just, everybody agree they can stamp these for us.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and vote on the notice on the number of election officials, which is 195. I move that we approve that as well.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so you guys can just stamp those for us.
Okay.
Okay, does anybody need a break before Ms. Holly starts her budget?
I would appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, we can do 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
What did you want, Michelle?
No, I was gonna, I had sent that back to you. You wanna do the regular budget or election?
You choose. Close
Hopefully the
best.
elections is gonna be a little bit quicker because there's really no change to it from last year. I added $1,000 in the overtime just because with our redistricting stuff, Sarah's already staying over and we'll probably have some more overtime based on. We are having to move people voter by voter. So it is in that process. And that, I did include a couple thoughts in the election budget that I typed late, did not approve, sorry. One, we'd really like to figure out a way to get an actual door on that elections office. The vault door is wonderful if you want to come all the way out to the hallway to shut it in case of a safety emergency, but then you're like, hey, let me get my door shut, thank you. And since it's the only open door in the building, she gets a lot of unnecessary traffic in there. As people come in, they're looking for information and it's the only door that they don't have to actually even try to get open. She's always helpful, of course, but it's. And we were looking for a grant for that, we're hoping to find something, because depending on how hard it is to go through that vault. It would go inside the vault over there on the concrete wall, depending on how hard it is to get something anchored into that, it could be expensive. And looking ahead to next year's, or 2 years ago, 2 years from now election, I'd really like to move this to electronic poll books. Which would be an upfront expense, but then would save some on the back end with paper polling books and they're more secure and they're easier. They will be easier to use once everyone's trained on them, and it's easier to make sure people vote in the right place. You have less provisionals that way because people can look to see where they go. And it's a voter ID, you can scan, they can scan a card, they can scan their ID, and it automatically updates their voter history when they scan it. So there's less chance of double voting, or if they scan it and they've already gotten an absentee ballot, it pops up on the screen and says, hey, this person's already got an absentee, you do something. It just helps with the administration. But like I said, that's kind of next year, but I was kind of throw that number in there because it could be 35,000, depending on how much.
That'd be a one-time expense or other subscription that you'd have to maintain.
It would be a one-time expense. It would probably roll into what we pay ES&S, which is our elections people with our DS200s and stuff. So there would be a yearly fee, but I don't think it would bump the yearly fee much from what we already paid, which I don't remember what that is right now. I see it comes out of that materials and supplies line of the elections budget, but I don't remember the exact amount.
Okay.
That's the elections budget. Regular budget, county clerk's budget. Really not a lot different in this one. I am asking for a 3% cost of living increase for my employees. Inflation has gone up between 7 and 7.5% in the last year, and they did not get a raise last year at any stripe. So, and this number is actually slight. I don't want to say it's inflated because that's the wrong word. I used last year's budget number to increase it by 3%. But I'm not using all of my salary budget from last year because where I hired a new person, his salary was not quite as much as the person who replaced. So it would be slightly less than that 196 and 123, probably a couple thousand. And then the only other additional expense on here is I'm asking again for money to redo the front office, get new desks. And it just would work better with the workflow of the office. It would make it safer for everybody involved. It would help make people's information more secure because we're not shouting back and forth across the counter. We have people come in hard of hearing and we have to deal with them. In addition to that, I would really, really like, if there's nothing else we can improve out of that kind of money, I'd really like to get the probate area fixed up this year. And all we need for that is $1,000 to get proper office partitions for where she sits.
How much?
About 2,000. Because right now she has done as good a job as anybody can do with 2 pieces of plywood and some wrapping paper. But I just feel like that should look better and be nicer, and somebody's loved one passes away and they come in, it should be a little more private if they have to talk about it. I know you guys asked about revenue for more of the departments and the outside agencies, but I found this kind of interesting on my numbers, so I thought I'd include that in there. For last year, our total revenue from our office was about $1 million that we brought in through property transfer taxes and making copies and the reporting fees. About half of that then gets immediately written back out. I mean, it all goes back out to the county general fund, but about half of that goes to different state and county agencies. Like $5 of every deed that's reported goes to the assessor's office to pay for mapping. Money goes to the 911 center out of the reporting fees. Money goes to the farmland out of that. And then we also, Angela and Alan collect building permit money, and that is run through our office to be deposited in the bank. But that is just a process of us running it through our accounting software. So of that money, about 400,000 or so. So covers is in the office. And then of course that goes in the general fund and gives some base for a bunch of other things. But I'm sorry, I put that, I thought those numbers, and that revenue is up. I was very conservative in my numbers, my half numbers for this year, but we could very well be over that number for this year once we get all the numbers in. Because people are buying property like nothing and they're paying good money for it. The only other piece of that was part of the code for our recording fee states that, there's several things, that there's $2 shall be deposited in the county general fund and dedicated to the operation of the county clerk's office. That's separated out on my report, and it shows last year that was about $5,700. Now I know that the county spends at least that much on paper and our index and stuff. I mean, we spend it and it's spent on us, and I don't have any qualms about whether or not it's spent on us. I just feel like for accounting purposes, it might not be a terrible idea to have that separated. So if anyone ever came back and said, show me how you spent that money on the county clerk's office, it'd be a matter of saying, here you go. Some offices, some counties do separate it, some counties don't. I think Nicholas County said ours would only be like, there would only be like $200-$400 because they currently don't report any deeds with or without plats, deeds of trust, fixture filings, and security agreements concerning real estate. That's one. Let's have any questions.
Do we know the answer to we pay farmland protection and we collect that tax? Do we know what would happen if we didn't have farmland protection and where that money would go?
Yes. So there are two different things we collect for farm. One, there's $20 collected on every deed of conveyance. That goes to the state farmland protection board. That money would be paid to them regardless of whether or not we have one or not.
Okay.
Then there is also a transfer tax of 2.2% per thousand. That is also collected, and that goes to our county farmland protection board. Were that to not exist, then we would not collect that 2.2%. We just wouldn't collect it. And so then there would be that money would not be put into the bank nor taken out of the bank. Currently, we collect total on a deed on this 7.7% per thousand. That's the transfer tax. So if we did not collect that, then we would just collect 5.5%, and it would get divvied up between the county and the state.
So you gave me some information on that a while back. And if we done away with that, my understanding it was only the $20 or what was it that goes to the state?
So it goes to the state. And I thought it was 20, and maybe it's not. I think that's the difference in the. If you come in and record a deed, there's no money involved. Like it's a quick claim deed or it's from parent child, you pay us $27.
$27.
If you more than $100, then there's the transfer tax, the conveyance, feeling up, and then the recording fee for that is $47 plus your transfer tax. So that extra 20 is what goes to farm.
And that goes to the state, that $20.
That $20, whether we have farmland protection board or not, that $20 on every one of those deeds would go. And mine would go to the state for the state farmland protection board then to purchase those properties just like our county farmland protection board does with our county.
But other than that, if we done away with farmland, all the other fees would go away.
That 2.2% we collect per thousand would just disappear.
Okay.
And we would not collect.
Okay.
We would still collect the 5.5%.
Correct. And then that would be split up between the state excise. The state gets so much and the county gets so much, with the caveat that we are going to keep more of that money every year. Now that eventually the state excise, that state transfer tax, will all stay with the county. Eventually, the whole 5.5% would stay with us, or you guys could choose to lower it. We collect the max amount in Fayette County that we can on excess.
Yeah, that's fair anyway. no
Yeah,
matter what, correct?
yeah, and I'm saying that there's a range, and we do collect the maximum. But that would be.
One thing I just wanted to point out and expect we'll come back to, but I've been trying to encourage merit-based raises and what other offices have done and what's worked. We've actually pushed some through. Ruth has brought some to us for some of the people who work for her. She'll come in and she'll just say, this person is, performing extraordinarily well, and and the salary isn't commensurate with some of the other coworkers or whatever the issue is, or just ways that we can, merit-based raises. So if you have merit-based raises, you should bring those to us.
I thought in that's something that I would like to do. I just felt like I didn't know if I had enough formal evaluation. Like, I know how I feel about it.
Mhm.
I have a couple that I would particularly like to do, but I also feel like I need to have some documentation, and I just do not.
Well, now that you have
and that's my lacking. I just life is happening.
Well, you have a year under your belt now. I mean, you didn't before, so now you'll be able to, look and see.
And that is on my calendar. It's a good formal evaluation. And then we've discussed performance evaluations in the office, and they know that they are coming. We just haven't gotten to actually doing them.
So if you were able to choose between cost of living increase for everybody or merit-based raises for those who deserve it, which would you pick?
Do both. I would personally be fine doing merit-based. But
Okay.
I also feel like and I have two people right now going for degrees in our field that have different things, and I want to make sure that I'm paying them. I don't want Jane to go get a paralegal degree and leave me.
She's probably
I
gonna do it
understand.
anyway.
All righty. I think we ought to hold on to all of these till then to make a decision, don't you guys?
Oh, after all the
After all the presentations.
budgets and everything's done.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a while.
Yeah, because PEIA is going to be going up. We just don't know how much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
All right.
I know I didn't want to be first this year, because I was first last year, and then everybody was supposed to go last time, and then y'all just keep go first again.
Oh, no.
Okay. All right.
Well, thank you. I thought you did a good job.
It's because you're so close to us. We want you to.
All right. Wayne, you ready? No.
No.
We're gonna push through it.
Actually, you're 7 minutes less than what you have. So you should be all right.
Mhm. What's the other one I should have? Oh, the garage. I don't have to, unless it's stapled in with the park. Might be.
What is it, garage? I put garage second.
This on the back.
Okay, yeah, there it is. We have them both.
Oh, here it is. Okay.
As your week went through, so you'll notice that there is a little increase in each budget. Yeah, so which one we're looking at for sure right now, but I will tell you that most of the increase is coming out of for the park is the 2 vacant positions that I have, and I have to budget for these 13,000 insurance opposed to the single insurance, because if I hire someone that puts
the family on the insurance,
Mhm.
it's gonna be more. So the biggest gap in, on that will be there's like an additional, could be an additional 13,000 come off of it, or it could stay there. Depends on who would be hired.
Wayne, I'm gonna tell you, just like I'm gonna tell everybody else. Utilities are gonna go up. So those have to be factored. Maintenance of repairs are gonna go up,
They're skyrocketing right
and
now.
the supplies are gonna be going up even more. So that's something that I would like to, I mean, that we're gonna have to take in consideration when we're doing these budgets. You know, it's just a number that we're gonna try to hit, but we don't know exactly what it's gonna be. So we're gonna be doing a, you know, okay, it's a 15% increase on automotive, or it's a 8% increase on utilities. So that's something we're gonna have to go back and look at on each single, every one. And gosh, I mean, Tom knows firsthand how much stuff has jumped.
Just for instance, for in the garage, I'll just say this because I dealt with it yesterday. A drum of washer fluid was $140. It went up $60. So that's quite an increase right there, just
Yeah.
for washer fluid. The oil has went up. That's $70. Yeah, everything is going through the roof right now as well. Individuals see it at the store or gas station, you know, we see it as the stuff coming in. Parts and things. The parts are definitely scarce. We have a cruiser right now waiting on a door that is on back order till December. So, and you can't find it nowhere.
Not even junkyard, I hate to say that.
Not even for junkyard. I looked up LKQ.
I don't even think you can put that. I don't think you can put it used on.
Okay, well, I thought I'd go out
I asked the same.
And when you see them, they got dents and things in it, so if you're not doing that. Replacing a beaten door.
There's some breakers you can't get now. There's electrical panels you can't get now. So it's really it's gonna be a fun budget to try to figure out. Was there anything special you were planning for the park?
As bill-wise,
Yeah, no, as an expense.
well, our budget, you know, it looks, as on the park budget, if that's where you guys are at, we'll go with that one first.
Well, just, we're looking at everything, so.
Okay, well, I didn't. Let's jump back 20 pages. Okay.
You talking about the garage, is that what you started with?
Yeah, I'll start with that. But the park has, it's the most.
Okay, I'm sorry, we stayed with the garage, but we know that everything's going up, Tom, so. That's why I said it's gonna be difficult to try to
Oh, yeah.
hit a percentage of,
Yes, I was gonna ask about the 75,000 to $15,000 jump in maintenance, and repairs, that's one of the reasons why that you,
yeah.
a lot of more for it, yeah.
Like our maintenance and for the park, you know, the budget last year was 59,787. It says I've expended 25,204. Well, part of the reason that looks like what I didn't spend anything that I needed is we was down basically 2 employees and we didn't get to do a whole lot of tasks. And we need to paint the pool this year. It's gonna be around $14,000-15,000 just for painting it. $100 a gallon. That number is gonna come down tremendous projects. Whenever you look at that, just keep in mind that most of our maintenance and stuff is done wintertime into the spring, as opposed to summertime. Unless it's, you can't just stop doing everything else to work.
One thing too, you can buy it in 5-gallon buckets. It saves you quite a few dollars.
Actually, I might be able to get in a room too. I have stand wide from national polls checking.
And you can check with Sharon Williams and see if you get the discount for the state.
Yeah, they don't have. I've talked to many of them. But anyway, as a previous presenter was up here, I did increases in salaries of Jerry Atkins, and like I said, under the park. It's going to be a 48% raise. And I know you'll hear this from probably not heard of everyone else. The inflation is, and it's eating whatever. Everybody's suffering from the top to the bottom. All in all, I kept the budget. I cut what I thought that I could cut. And I still kept it again within that range of those two insurances. Take roughly, I think it's right up to $7,000 for a single person or a family insurance. So if it's two people come in, that's single, and it's only the $6,192 per person, then it'll be like $14,000, which will actually put the park budget back. It'll actually be under what I was given last year. So, but that all depends on the insurance. I know the insurance is supposed to take a hike again. So everything's moving. Everything's moving. It's time to keep ahead of that.
I have a couple of quick questions here. Okay, never mind. I see it now. So you have two vacant maintenance positions?
Yes.
Do you have them advertised right now?
They we're going to reopen it. Once it's been on there for a while, they look at it. So
I did interview a guy yesterday, and I have getting his background check. And I mean, he would be a good person. He has a college degree. Don't know how long he'll stay for. Not far from the best candidates I've interviewed for quite a long time.
Okay. Do you guys have any more questions?
I got one question. Your actual expenses for extra help, 2020, 2021 is $11,200.
Yeah, 2021, that was the COVID, the
Okay.
first COVID year, so we didn't have the pool open.
Was the pool open this past year?
Yes, it was.
Okay, I thought we opened it, but I thought it was only halfway.
Yeah, well, it didn't open until June 20, yeah, probably.
Okay.
Something like that.
All right.
And actually, all that extra help, two of my part-time people, I think have been paid out of the, for that for sure. I need to talk to Julie about that to be sure. But, you know, they worked on, since I've had those two vacant spots, I've kept them on helping out until actually this month. So they haven't worked in since the last of January.
Okay, one thing, I'm sorry, Tom, do you have another question?
No, go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. One thing that that really helped was the event you did in October, I think, with everybody coming in. That was really a good event, had a lot of people there. I would consider doing a couple of those extra.
We have one scheduled for October 1st.
Well, I would maybe look at April.
You thought about like Easter egg hunt type
Yeah.
stuff?
We have the Easter egg hunt already, the Saturday before Easter. The 10th maybe, the day, and then we have the trial derby the week after Easter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we are looking at something, I have to see, actually, I have a question for you guys about maybe doing a craft fair at the Memorial Building in May. April, May is hard months here, just like October, but you don't know what weather's gonna be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nasty weather, people not gonna come out to the park. Hold on, so it's not gonna be. So we try to plan around everything. through the summer months, the weekends. I mean, we try something on a weekday, that don't really work. Not everybody has to work. Yep. All of our stuff is.
And Christmas Land was great.
It was by far the largest. We had Sorry, I forgot to bring that with me.
So hopefully you guys got a chance to go because Wayne and the staff did a knockout job on
I believe last year, Tom will never done the meeting, and I may be wrong, I think Tony our income, our revenue was 68,000 maybe.
Something like it, yeah.
Something like that. This past year, I don't know if it's any great increase, but $93,906.70. So it is.
That's a good increase.
it. Yeah, that's good with COVID.
So that's,
You remember the conversation, Wayne? I'm glad.
getting older, but I do remember a little bit.
Hey, that's why we got those notes on our phones.
So you guys have any more questions?
No.
I won't, it's on the garage, I did the same thing at the garage for,
Okay.
I know you talked about Mary. I think Mary Reed Margaret. I don't know.
Well, it hasn't in the past, but to my knowledge, trying to start. So you gave them both the 48 cents raises too? or-
I actually give Angel a little more because we've done a job also analysis with other jobs for what she does, plus she does more, a
Mhm.
good bit more. And hers would be like 75, 74 cents, somewhere in there. The junior Clarence Curwood. Yeah, his was the 48 scale.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. Do you need a break before Gabe gets started?
If you don't mind.
We'll take a quick break, 5-minute break.
Yes, sir.
With West Virginia American Water. Because with the engineers from West Virginia American Water found a huge leak up it.
Right. So,
Canal Falls has sent them
That is
8
probably
million
not-
gallons of water this month.
well, it seems to me like they did have the problems they said they didn't have when we had the heat.
There you go.
That there's a lot of those
Yeah.
problems are there.
So the TSC is wanting West Virginia American Water to take it over. They also wanted to take over Canal Falls and Armstrong Creek. And when I talked to them, I said, the only way that you can do it is if you take the sewer too. If not, then the state has to come in and take over all the sewer. Because we are having issues. Well, you saw, did Ruth share with you that West Virginia American Water is going to redo everything with Page Kincaid because they left other stuff out because of Phil. Phil didn't forward the paperwork to them like they were supposed to. You know, his body hasn't retired, but his mind's way gone.
And after another, it seemed.
It's Gabe, when Tom comes back, you'll have 5 minutes.
It shouldn't take too long.
Yeah.
I know you guys are a little behind schedule. I don't know how that happened.
But we'll shorten our 10:30 break.
Well, see, we want to take some away from you so we can make sure solid waste has their full amount of time.
They need the full amount of time. They got a lot going on. They have a lot to discuss.
Hey, who's doing the work over in Meadowbridge about cleaning up stuff?
Who's doing the work?
Do you
We
have
have
any idea?
Sam Stallnicker is a partner of ours that we work with pretty closely over at DEP. But then
Kelly McClintock.
Kelly McClintock has also been on top of things as well. So she wears a lot of hats. One of those would be a solid waste authority board member.
I know that I've had people that I've stopped and talked to over there about garbage. And I've had 3 of them send me text in the last 5 days that it's really getting cleaned up over there and they really appreciate what's going on. So I wanted to share that with both of you.
Good to hear. Yeah, no, I mean, you know, Tommy's tries to get wherever he can. He's spread pretty thin, but Kelly is a great set of eyes to have on the ground also.
Okay, good.
All right, let's get started.
All right, we'll start with page 1 of the budget request. As you know, as you see here, total cost, the bottom of page 2 for the Fayette County Resource Coordinator's Office, $91,432. On the addendum displays how much we are requesting of the Fayette County Commission, closer to $64,528 once you factor in costs for supplies, travel, and training. Our total request is $69,528, which is down 8% from last year. The work plan for what we anticipate doing, I'm sorry, let me just take a step back. There's a $21,904 contribution from both the Solid Waste Authority and the Farmland Protection Board, offsetting the cost of the Resource Coordinator's Office. Because of course they contribute to Abby's salary for providing administrative services to both of those boards. Any questions thus far? So the work plan that we have lined out for fiscal year 23 is delineated here. About 55%, 60% of our time is spent on grant management. And there is a list of the grants that we are currently managing or anticipate have already been awarded and will be managing in FY23. So that's about $650,000 in grant funding that we'll be managing really from this point to the end of fiscal year 23. Some of those we are currently managing. So, and then also in that work plan, you will see the pending grants, which include the Land and Water Conservation Fund, Department of Highways, RTP program. We have an EPA Brownfields grant in the hopper or in the works. And then of course, the gig ready technical assistance. So those are all, we're hoping to hear something before the conclusion of FY22. And then there's also the grant development schedule, which from conversations we've had with the commission and the county clerk, we already have a number of grants that we're lining up to write for fiscal year 23. So, and that is a fluid list. If you have any more projects that you want to see on that list or any other priorities that you have moving forward, you can add that to that grant development list. And then of course, the board administration work that we have, that we conduct for the Farmland Protection Board and the Solid Waste Authority. And as usual, the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals. So that's really the outline of our upcoming work for the calendar year, for the fiscal year. And then also in this board packet or this packet for you all are some job postings for the resource coordinator and for the assistant resource coordinator for your approval for future evaluations.
Well, Gabe, there's one thing. First, congratulations on your future endeavors.
Thank you, sir.
You know, you're going to be leaving. And nothing against you, but I'm going to speak for myself. I would prefer that all resumes on any job posting goes to Ruth.
Okay.
So that she will take care of those instead of coming to you because you're going to be exiting.
That was merely an offer before I head out that I'll try to collate those and take a look at them. But yeah, we can change that.
Of course, we haven't decided to post anything yet. So, if somebody just happens to hand you something, I think we're looking at all of our options.
Sure.
We want to restructure our entire county, entire office.
I really put those in there for your reference. Those are definitely not posted
They're
anywhere.
helpful for sure.
Yeah.
And if you can make sure she has soft copies, that would be great.
Sure.
In case we need to modify these. All right, you guys have any questions, Mr. Pena?
No.
Well, thank you for all your hard work.
Yes, ma'am.
Good luck with everything.
I appreciate it. Same goes to you all.
Thank you. Take care.
That was quick.
Yep. Efficient. So,
He did
So-
get us on time, so thank you,
Yep.
Gabe.
solid waste, you ready? Always ready.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Aletha and I'm the chair of Fayette County Solid Waste Authority. First, I want to say that we have an excellent board. It's a working board, not just a governing board. And each person brings in unique talents and skills to, we all have different perspectives and it works really well together. Second of all, the staff that we have for the Solid Waste Authority are phenomenal. First, we have Tommy, Litter Control Officer, who's a one-person show, but really partners well with other agencies to get things done and pulls in a lot of other resources. Doing the monthly tire collection,
It's
helping
happening
out.
right now.
It's happening
right
right today. And then there's Amy, who is our financial person, really helps keep us on track. And also, I think was fairly instrumental in us getting on with West Virginia Corps.
Abby and Gabe did a lot of the work, but I
Right.
did the ending part of it.
But that brought us down from, it reduced our insurance costs. Next is Abby, who does an excellent job putting together our board packets. And as Kelly McClintock, one of our newer board members, had asked, she said, we were talking in a meeting on Monday evening, and she said, where else can I be that on the board, I can call Abby when I got my board pack and say, what is this? And she says, just so nice to have that access to somebody doing that. And then we have Gabe, who has also done a phenomenal job writing the grants, keeping us moving forward. So our budget request is $30,000. Our total budget is $62,523. I think we asked for $30,000 last year, asking for the same this year. Those expenses will be used for a 7% increase in salaries for Gabe, Amy, Abby, and Amy, and Tommy. And as you guys were talking about earlier, we all know that the cost of living is, the inflation. I think I read last night that the producer price index was up 9.7%, and we're just asking for 7%. Because all those expenses affect fuel, food, family needs. So we feel it's justified. So that's the biggest part of it. And probably the other new thing that we added this year was some things for office supplies and public postings, because we've done more. Like we have a grant now that we need to bid, but we have to do it through the classified and that costs. And we've been doing more of that. So we added a little bit of money in there for that. We do get, even though, so we have still like a 32,000, if we get the 30,000, we say a $32,000 balance, but we do get grants that help support our funding initiatives. Tipping fees have gone up, so we get that money, and that money has to be used for Solid Waste Authority activities, staffing, things like that, resources. And I think we got some other tax money, wasn't it?
It's a new tax distribution
Right,
from the state,
yeah.
and it's going to increase every 2 years.
So that helps support the rest of what we need. So I actually don't need 15, 20 minutes, but I'm open to questions.
One thing too, I went in and got them straightened out on their voting to make sure that they have a proper board. They had never voted for
We thank you for that.
for quite some time. So I went in and helped them get that all set up, and they did. They did their proper their proper voting, and Aletha got chosen again as the chair. So that's taken care of. They know when they have to do that each year. And I'm helping them out as much as I can.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Yeah.
We're hoping that there'll be other increases in the future that we really like to be able to get, hire somebody else to help Tommy. Probably a full-time position. He needs the help. I mean, he does a lot. He's a great one-person show, but, and he does need additional help.
All right, I'm
That's-
sorry, I was trying to find cough drop. I don't have any more questions. You guys have questions?
Straightforward.
I'm good.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, so there's solid waste. Okay, Ruth, what do you got on your side? Thank you.
Do we
There's
have
only one thing on my list, but I don't know if you really want to discuss it.
Eddie?
We need to go to executive
Alan?
session for it, or?
Potentially,
Alan?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
I mean, that's probably shouldn't be.
Well,
Prosecuting
then,
attorney.
do we have,
Do we have
We have a
Eddie's?
break right now.
Do we
What time's
have
Eddie's?
not till 10:45?
10:45, but we don't have his paperwork.
I can,
You can send it to
Not
me,
have
I'll
the paperwork.
consolidate it for you.
well, I don't have a pretty one. Can we make copies of yours? Because when he sent it to me, it's all zeros. I know, everybody's had issues with it. It's the auditor's form. And not everybody can fill it out, so.
Eddie, if you remember last year, I talked to you about assessors looking at blighted and dilapidated properties. There's a bill that's been approved through one committee. It's going through the second committee either today or tomorrow. And then there's a good chance that it's going to pass because they're using the coal fields
For me.
as a classic example on that. So,
Well, yeah.
I think I got a size.
Make sure that- I know, I talked to them about it, we said the devil, make sure they're compliant.
yeah, and they talked about doing a training with the guys on what the, or ladies and guys on what the properties look like and stuff, so. Happy to see that going through.
Just one of us need to make a motion.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move that we go into executive session to discuss the reappointment to enact based on some recent events that are personnel related.
Second.
Yeah.
Go on, Nick. 10:21.
23rd.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll be ready to, Eddie, we'll be ready by like 10:35 if you want to start early. All right.
Oh my God.
What time is that, John? What time is that? Apparently.
I don't know, so you're right, right?
Okay.
Sounds like right, Dave, but
Man, everybody's budget's simple. Mine is that thick.
Look how many people you got,
I don't know, but still, it's just, no wonder.
and all the things you have to take care of, you know?
And everybody doing this percentage stuff, I didn't do a percentage, I just asked, but you can't do it with deputies. The only thing different, you know, now I could do it with my secretaries and then, but I just asked, I'm asking for one big thing.
Yeah, we didn't really the percentages. I was just there.
Well, mine, you know, I broke down, I went through, got every county starting salary.
Really?
This year,
Every county,
every county
their starting salary?
start salaries, ours is 36,339. We're number 33rd in the state. We're number 18 out of 19 of class 1 county.
Wow.
So I'm asking for $3,600 to get them up to 40. And then Oak Hill PD, they got that raise, they make them 47 something, but they just got another 5% raise. Their start salary is $50,400 a year. They have 18 police officers. Now,
18 police
and
officers.
the police officers, sure, you got 30,000. I do. Y'all pay for 13 of them, 23 of them on the levy. And that's what scares me. If they get rid of this property tax stuff, that's scary.
Yeah. A lot of people
Where's the
don't
money going?
know.
Yeah, here, everybody in this court, there'll be a lot of people gone.
I don't see how the city of Oak Hill keeps up with their salaries. Those people over there make, and they get a raise every year.
That, and not just police officers got 5%, they all, the whole
Yeah.
city board.
What were the top three sheriff's departments as far as starting salaries?
Starting, the number one, of course, is Harrison County. They start at 53,000 something a year. The number two was Oak Hill PD at the time, because I put my surrounding Oak Hill, Fayetteville, Montgomery, and all them in. Mount Hope, Oak Hill's number two at 47, and I don't have the problem with it.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't know right off the top of my head.
I mean, Harrison County is a lot of.
Well, yeah,
They have a
we-
lot of full choice.
We can't compare us to Harrison County, stuff like that, but still, we're class 1 county. And we're number 18 out of 19 class 1 counties. And 33rd overall, which everybody's gonna get pay raise again this year throughout the state. I don't know what to do. One, nobody wants to be police officers no more, which I get it, I understand it. But when you're sorry, you know, Mount Hope makes more than us now. Oak Hill does, Fayetteville does, and Montgomery makes all more than my deputies. And it's just pathetic, it's just sad. And the only thing that really irks me more than anything, Nicholas County, since I've been here, we did $7,000-8,000 more than them a year. They surpassed us now.
Yes, we're still live on YouTube, so we're still being
I
broadcast.
don't,
I'm just saying, I got a text that said, I can still hear you, so what should you say?
we are, thank you. But I mean, you know, it's scary. I don't know what to do to keep people motivated.
I think that's a tough issue, because I have a lot of police family friends that are Canal County, going through, which they don't seem to have too much of an issue with recruitment for their
Right.
sheriff's department. Now locally, it's a different story.
Canal County, I think they're like either 8th highest paid or 11th, somewhere in that area. And they got 100 and some deputy sheriff too.
Everybody always told me, with the highest PD budget, and this was just information to me, was Barnesville, but they also only have less than, I think, 10 officers,
Right.
and they cover a substantial stretch to Huntington and outside of Canal County.
Right.
So they're pretty limited. I mean, they said like pay and resources, they have more than anyone, but their hours, like their shift hours that they rotate on the weekly, it's tough.
Right.
Because they don't have that much force.
You know, and the whole place to this county, I remember back in, I think 2012, to run in my own. Yeah, I can. But it's just. And then the cost of everything, inflation, like inflation. I wouldn't fill my cruise trip issue, and I have this expedition because.
With regard to the enact reappointment, I move that we deny that reappointment. And we're open to accepting another application on the agenda in the future, once we learn what Enact is doing for us in Fayette County. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Mr. Young, are you ready to roll?
We're ready.
All right.
We're just here to present our budget for the assessor's office. Pretty much our budget consists of salaries, benefits, and that's pretty much the gist of it. A little bit of travel expense, a little bit of education and training.
And do you have any other funds to which you receive that, that you're funded that don't come from the county?
We do have the PVC fund.
Okay. We had asked that every office present that information to us as well.
You have a copy of our PVC budget. We submit that to Bruce.
Okay, we would,
every year.
The one in.
Yeah.
It's in the-
okay,
Theirs is approved differently than this one. And you can write.
We have, the PVC budget is approved by a PVC committee. There are 3 assessors, 3 county, and 6 at-large votes, and the commission for the director of the property tax division of the state tax department is the chairman. We submit our budget every year to them. They approve that budget, and we submit this budget to you guys. We have 2 budgets. About half of my office staff through PVC, and the other half staff through the county.
okay. So that's just like state level funding for your office functions, is that?
It's to fund reappraisal, and we buy any vehicles that we need. We buy that out of that. Computers, we're getting ready to have to replace all the computers in the office. We really don't ask you guys for anything. We purchase all of our needs out of that. Flyover that we do about every 3 to 4 years, that's a costly item that comes out of PVC as well.
We're just basically paying salaries, looks like, travel.
Pretty much benefits.
You mentioned the flyover, Eddie. Don't mean to change the subject. Still talking about the assessor's office. That flyover that was done, when will it be up on the website?
Which one?
The one that's on the topo of 1 foot grid.
I'll have a PVC meeting in Clarksburg in December, and Kirk Donaldson said that information is done. Now we have to get with them. It may be already in there.
It is. I'm just asking when will it be up to where it can be projected over properties?
Well, I have to talk to Jamie on that one. I don't know if it's been made available to him yet.
Yes,
Kirk
it has.
told me, okay.
I've got it. Matter of fact, I've already got it.
Okay.
I've asked to be sent to.
We'll have to get with Jamie and see when he can get that. To be quite honest with you, that operator is the busiest
Yeah,
part of our office. And or that I'd like to have 2 members.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to get off subject. I'm sorry. Let's move on. I really like that though, at 1 foot topo. I get excited when I see it.
All right. So there aren't any real surprises here. Everything's pretty standard, it seems.
Asking for what we had last year.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't you have the good thing about that topo map didn't cost us?
It was state funded, yeah.
Yeah.
Not very many people even know about it. I mean, I've been asking for a year about it. Well,
I know, I kept telling you, we don't want to buy anything because.
Yeah, I talked to you when I was first elected about it, yeah. Because it, to me, that's a development tool that is really needed for anybody wanting to develop property. look at it and see how it's laid. Yeah, I've already got it overlaid, but it's not on the, I was wanting to see when it.
Get on the website.
Get on the website, yeah.
If he's already got it done like that, then we'll probably, all we have to do is call Atlas. And have them back.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, that's a very good tool for anybody that wants to develop in Fayette County.
And we're trying to make it better.
Okay, see ya.
Thank you.
See, y'all get excited about vacations. I get excited about stuff like that.
So we can either move up Alan and Angela, or we can see if Anthony's ready to roll,
Or if Anthony wants to jump in and do his
you
first.
want to do yours,
I can,
get it over with.
so I get to claim the unused time.
And if Amy or Ruth, if you guys can let the others know we're running ahead of schedule and they should be ready.
All right, you guys ready?
Yep.
I'm gonna talk a little bit, I think first initially about my, what I believe my office, some of the more significant accomplishments my office has achieved during the first year. I'm sure you guys recall last year when I was here, I went on at length about the jail bill and my ideas for reducing the jail bill. And I suspect all of you may have had some doubts as to whether or not that was going to happen. But essentially, we immediately began taking steps to help reduce the jail bill. And just to kind of give you a quick idea of some of the things that we did, probably the simplest of the steps we took was simply reviewing the bill that the Regional Jail Authority submits to the county. And what we discovered when we started reviewing these bills is that it is not uncommon for the jail, the correctional authority to continue to bill the county after a defendant is convicted of a felony. And just to remind you, prior to being convicted of a felony, the county foots the bill. Any misdemeanor case, we foot the bill. But once that defendant is convicted of a felony, the state picks up the tab on the incarceration costs. And for whatever reason, the employees over at the jail who are responsible for the billing are not getting it right. They generally will get an order from the circuit judge immediately following a plea hearing. It then gets sent by the circuit clerk, and despite that, they still seem to get mistakes. They still seem to make significant mistakes. It wasn't unusual for us to find 5 figures worth of mistakes in 1 month's jail bill. One of the other things that we've done is we've been expediting the handling of felony cases. And as I've mentioned before, the longer the period of time that goes by between the time a person is charged with a crime and the point at which they are convicted, the more time that passes, the more likely it is that the county is going to pick up the tab, at least in part, for the cost of incarceration. So by expediting this process, we have helped, I think, reduce the costs of the jail bill. The way it was handled previously is cases weren't assigned until the case was indicted. Cases are now assigned immediately to an attorney once the case is transferred from magistrate court to circuit court. We review it earlier. If it's not a good case, we either offer a misdemeanor plea or we dismiss. If the defendant cannot post bond, in appropriate cases, we then work with defense counsel to try to get them out. One of the other things that we do is a case that may not necessarily have been presented to the grand jury will get moved to the front of the line if the defendant has had their bond revoked or if they haven't been able to post bond. We don't allow those cases to sit any longer than necessary. We basically try to get those in front of the grand jury and get the indictment. We've also used day reports and GPS monitoring as conditions of bond to allow defendants prior to their conviction to be released in cases where we wouldn't necessarily be comfortable with just allowing them to walk out the door without any additional supervision. And one of the other things that we've managed to do is we've worked with defense attorneys. We've made it clear to the Public Defender Office and other defense counsel that, you know, if you have a misdemeanor case and your client's been sitting in jail for a couple weeks, come talk to us. We may be able to get it worked out earlier rather than later. But those are all things that I think have gone into the reduction in the jail bill. And I got these numbers from Ruth, and the table in my presentation focuses on the calendar year rather than the fiscal year. And for the first 6 months of 2021, we had budgeted $133,333 per month for the jail bill. In the second half of the year, July through December, we had budgeted $116,667 per month. We ended up, for the calendar year 2021, we spent $970,308. That comes in at $529,692,000, over $500,000 under budget. There's no reason for me to believe that this is not going to continue. It just simply requires the will and the diligence on the part of my staff to keep an eye on things and to keep things moving and to continue doing what we're doing. And the jail bill will never be zero. And I think we all know that. And quite frankly, the jail bill should never be zero. There are some people that need to be in jail, even for misdemeanors. We had a case where a defendant had surreptitiously taken videos of women as they were disrobing to get into a tanning bed. He can only be charged with misdemeanors, and he was charged with quite a few and ended up pleading. It wasn't my case. I don't remember. I want to say he pled to 10 misdemeanors.
My memory is like none.
One for each victim. And I remember Magistrate McGraw asking me if the county commission was going to be upset because it's a misdemeanor case. We're going to pay for that guy to be incarcerated for 5 years. And my response to Magistrate McGraw was, sometimes it's worth $48.50 a day to incarcerate somebody. And I think that was a case where it was definitely worth the money. So we know it's not going to ever be zero, but you know, at the end of the day, we also know that we can take steps to reduce the jail costs, and I think we've done a good job of that. As far as the budget items, I mean, I joke with you guys all the time about asking for a raise, but we all know where my salary comes from. That's obviously set by the legislature, and it is at their discretion. But I do at this point want to ask and encourage you to consider giving my staff raises. In particular, Jennifer Crane. The skill set necessary to try complicated cases is not one that you're going to obtain overnight as a lawyer. It's not one that you just get from going through law school and passing the bar exam. The only way to get that experience is to actually spend time in court and try cases. And since I've taken office, Jennifer's been responsible for the prosecution of Brian Willis, who was the defendant in the double homicide that took place out on Willistown Road. It was a double homicide and an arson. Mr. Willis was convicted this past year and was sentenced to prison life in prison without the possibility of parole. She was also responsible for the prosecution of Hayden Dixon, who murdered his girlfriend with an axe. Mr. Dixon was likewise convicted and sentenced to prison for life without the possibility of parole. Ms. Crane also went to trial on Henry Joe Ward, who attempted to murder one of our deputies, tried to shoot him. For reasons that only Mr. Ward can answer, he was offered a very reasonable plea. He didn't take the plea. He took his chances at trial and was convicted of all counts. And he will be serving a minimum of, I believe, 9.5 years in prison because of Ms. Crane's efforts. And to be perfectly candid, at the present time, Ms. Crane is being paid an amount that her current compensation is $79,008 a year. I would be very hard pressed, and I'd be quite surprised if Ms. Crane decided to resign, if I would be able to replace her. And by replace, I mean, I'm not suggesting she can be replaced, but to find somebody with a comparable skill set in terms of trial skills, I think it would be difficult. And as I've indicated, I'm asking for her compensation to be increased to $90,000, which is an increase of almost $11,000 a year. When I was interviewing candidates to fill the positions for the 2 assistant prosecuting attorneys, and I'd mentioned this last year, but I did have an assistant with 18 years legal experience, 15 as an assistant prosecuting attorney in Harrison County that applied, and she was being paid, I believe it was $91,000 a year. So I don't think that that's necessarily out of line with Ms. Crane's skill set. Sarah Smith is another assistant working for my office that I believe is an asset. I quite frankly didn't know Sarah very well when I took office, but basically what I've seen over the past year is someone who's very aggressive in terms of prosecuting. She went to trial on started out as a domestic between a boyfriend and a girlfriend that had split up, and the girlfriend went into her ex's house and basically destroyed the place. Defendant was adamant they weren't going to plead to a felony, and Sarah basically did not offer her a misdemeanor and instead took it to trial and ended up getting a conviction for a felony. Sarah was also co-counsel for Ms. Crane in the murder trial for Brian Willis, and she was co-counsel in the trial on Henry Joe Ward. She also went to trial on a sex offense case involving a child, and it resulted in a hung jury, which resulted in the judge declaring a mistrial. I actually gave Ms. Smith the option. I said, it's your case, it's your call. We can either dismiss it, or if you want, you can have a second crack at him. And she didn't even hesitate. She said, absolutely, I want to try. I want another shot. So we ended up, we re-indicted him to fix some errors in the indictment, and it was set for trial. And then the defendant ended up absconding and is now on the run and has a bench warrant. But her work ethic is very impressive. She's gained quite a bit of trial experience over the past year. And I was going to ask for a $4,000 a year increase for her from $68,004 up to $72,000. Chris Burdick has probably what is the most difficult job in our office. He handles all of the stuff that nobody else wants to handle, specifically abuse and neglect cases and juvenile delinquent cases. If I have my way, I will never handle another abuse and neglect case for the remainder of my legal career. I did them for 20 years. They're very trying. They're very stressful. And Chris handles not just some of them, he handles all of them. And I can also say that both of our judges provide me with feedback in terms of how my employees are doing. And I can say to you that before Chris started handling abuse and neglect cases, I would sit there in the courtroom and listen to the judges find fault with the prosecutor that was handling the abuse and neglect cases because things were not getting done. And since I've taken office, I've not heard either judge complain about Chris. Chris is being paid the same amount as Sarah, and I'm asking for him to have an increase the same as Sarah, and I'd like him to be bumped up to $72,000. Tyler Rohrball is our youngest assistant. He is currently on a leave of absence. He is with the Army Reserves training through their JAG Corps program. The idea is that when he finishes, he will work for the JAG Corps on weekends, and then he'll come back to continue to work for us. He assisted Ms. Crane in the trial against Hayden Dixon, and then he actually had his very first trial on his own He prosecuted a Thomas Banks, AKA Fat Cat. And Mr. Banks was convicted at trial of multiple drug offenses and was sent to prison. And that was Tyler's first trial ever, not just first as an assistant prosecutor. He has not been practicing law for very long. I believe he's up to year 5 now. And I was going to ask for his pay to be increased from $57,000 to $60,000. Chelsea Walker is she is the newest of the attorneys that we have. She's currently being paid $66,000, and I believe in terms of what she's being paid and comparing it with her experience level, she's probably in the ballpark for what she should be paid, coupled with the fact that she's only been with us now for about a year. But she handles, in addition to criminal cases, she helps the sheriff with conservatorship cases. She also handles the habeas petition cases, which is where basically defendants complain that their attorneys did such a horrible job that that's why they were convicted. It's kind of like a last ditch effort, but she handles those for us. And she also handles some juvenile cases. I am asking that she be given a modest bump in pay up to $67,200. In terms of what lawyers in West Virginia are being paid, according to the U.S. Bureau for Labor Statistics, the average in West Virginia is just over $109,000. So clearly, everyone in the office, with the exception of myself, is being paid well below the average. So I would like the commission to consider that. In terms of support staff, Bureau for Labor Statistics also indicates that paralegals are typically paid in West Virginia about a little over $48,000 a year. My legal assistants, when I was in private practice, were generally paid as much as $42,000 a year. And Marilyn Pridemore is my legal assistant. She's also the office manager. And I can't seem to get Marilyn to understand that, unlike when she was up the street and getting overtime, that she doesn't get overtime at the prosecutor's office. It's very rare that she's not there before 8 in the morning. It's very rare that she's not there after 4 p.m. She takes a lunch, but it's almost always a working lunch. I mean, I'll walk by her office and I'll see her eating, but she's also at her computer working. She basically does a good job of keeping me organized on the criminal cases, and then she also handles the administrative tasks. And I was going to ask that her pay be increased from $38,800 and change up to $41,800 and change, an increase of about $3,000, or it is an increase of $3,000. Jessica Shockey is Ms. Crane's legal assistant. Jessica is the legal assistant that keeps us organized during grand jury. And you have to consider that grand jury usually takes place over a 2-day period as far as the actual presentments. Sometimes we will present we'll present cases against as many as 80 different defendants in that 2-day time. The preparation and the lead up to that is the difficult job. It's communication with officers, it's getting witnesses to the courthouse, getting everybody scheduled, and setting everything up so that it runs smoothly, so that we can minimize the time that the grand jurors are there. She does an absolutely phenomenal job. And again, for her, I'm asking that she be given a $3,000 increase in pay from $35,508 up to $38,508. Tracy Boyd is another legal assistant that I consider to be essential to the operation of the office. She is Mr. Burdick's legal assistant, and she does, she basically prepares everything that gets filed in the abuse and neglect cases, which is generally extensive. She prepares all of the orders from all the hearings, and she does a very good job of keeping Chris organized and keeping the judges happy. I'm also asking for an increase for her of about $3,000. To kind of move things along, you guys can take a look at my, there's 2 other employees, Haley Hopkins and Caitlin Dorsey. I'm also asking for pay increases for those 2. And I've included the summaries in my in my budget presentation. Really no reason to go over the retirement, health insurance, dental and vision insurance. As far as the balance of the budget, I've not asked for any increases in terms of the budget line items, with one exception, and that is for dues and subscriptions. And just to let you guys know, it's not really an increase in terms of overall expenditures for the county. The county has been paying for the LexisNexis subscription for the prosecutor's office outside of my budget. And what that is our legal research tool that we utilize. We have accounts set up for everyone in the office, all of the attorneys and the legal assistants that have a need for it. The other line item in there is for the bar dues for the attorneys, which comes to $1,500. So essentially, I'm asking for this line item to cover the LexisNexis subscription, which is $4,800 a year plus the bar dues. And as I indicated, we had a subscription for Circuit Express, which was how we accessed court files through the internet. That service was terminated toward the end of last year. It was $290 a month, so it's no longer going to be paid by anybody. But so essentially, I'm not necessarily asking for an increase in that line item. I'm simply asking that it be made part of my budget. One other thing that I did want to cover that's different from last year, beginning with this calendar year, I started sharing the cost of parking space with the sheriff's department, the parking lot that's adjacent to the prosecutor's office. There are 9 parking spaces there. One of them is dedicated for the SWAT team's vehicle, 4 are used for the sheriff's department, 4 are used for my office. And that's costing $1,200 per year. I've also agreed to pay for the parking spots for Jennifer Crane and Marilyn Pridemore. And that is $360 a year for Marilyn, $300 a year for Jennifer. I have paid all of the parking costs out of my asset forfeiture account. I plan to continue to do that. I wasn't going to ask the county commission for that money. I haven't yet paid. Miss Crane's parking doesn't come up until this summer, but I plan to pay that when it does come due. The commission has also asked for information regarding additional funding sources. We do have what we refer to as the asset forfeiture account. In drug cases, when money is seized as part of a drug investigation, sometimes money is seized under suspicious circumstances where there isn't necessarily an investigation or an arrest. But we will, in those instances, file a petition in court after the payment of costs to proceed with the case, which usually consists of publication costs in the Beckley newspaper. The money gets divided 10% between my office, and the balance of 90% goes to the investigative agency that seized the cash. At the present time, or at least as of February 4th, there was $20,450.02 in that account. During the course of 2021, one of the issues that I identified in terms of problems with the office is there were problems with getting these petitions filed. That issue was addressed. That was an employee issue, and that issue was addressed. Once that issue was addressed, and just to get, as indicated in my presentation, for the first half of 2021, we had no deposits into this account, and that was a function of the cases not being handled properly. For the second half of 2021, we had just over $3,600. I think moving forward, a reasonable estimate of annual deposits would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,000. And keep in mind, for us to put $6,000 into this account, it means that $60,000 has to be seized. There will be years where that's going to be higher. There's going to be years where it's going to be lower. We just got an order. It's not reflected because it just happened late last week, but we just forfeited somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000. So there was a $2,000 deposit. There's a case that we have pending that if it plays out the way that I think it will, and I hope it will, we're going to be well north of $20,000 in that case. But those are all uncertainties. I'm certainly not averse to using that money to fill in some of the budget. I can't, to be honest with you, it's difficult looking at past expenditures and figuring out what was, I mean, I can see the vendor in terms of who the money was paid to, but in terms of telling you what was purchased with that money prior to my taking office, I can't really tell you. I mean, the extent of what we've used it for is parking, and I used it to pay for a monitor. Last year, I purchased 2 laptops, and I was supposed to pay for those out of the asset forfeiture, and apparently the county ended up footing the bill without us reimbursing the county, just to be candid with you about that. But I don't have a problem using the asset forfeiture money moving forward to supplement the budget and to help out as needed. I just think we need to be mindful that that's not a guaranteed source of income, and it's going to fluctuate and it's going to go up and down. So just to wrap it up, the budget increase that I've asked for is $34,405, and that I didn't include in that the cost of the LexisNexis subscription. Basically, that is a 3.94% increase. And I think given the work that my office has put in terms of saving on the jail bill, I'd like to think that I shouldn't say we, I should say my employees have earned it, because they're the ones who basically are the reason why we were able to reduce the jail bill. It's one thing for me to set a policy, but my staff implements it. And again, I'm not necessarily opposed to using some of that asset forfeiture money to cover some of the expenses. And if it means that we can use the asset forfeiture money for some of the line items and then give some of my employees more pay, I certainly would be receptive to doing that as well. So that's all I have.
I have a question.
Certainly.
Has Animal Shelter come to you at all for funds from asset forfeiture to pay for the care of
No.
animals in the cases?
And
Because I know you offered that, so I wondered.
if I'm not mistaken, I think I've offered it a couple times, and I've not. I mean, the investigation line item in the budget, that's one of the reasons that line item is there. When we have to have additional information that can't be provided through law enforcement, the professional services line item is intended to cover expert witnesses. So for example, I mean, I have an animal cruelty case coming up, and I am almost certainly going to use a veterinarian to testify during that case, and their compensation will come out of that budget line item, either professional services or investigation. But the money's there. I mean, and quite frankly, I didn't necessarily mind giving some of the asset forfeiture money over to help out, because without the animal shelter, our animal control officers and law enforcement officers have no place to take the animals. I mean, we don't, and I don't need to tell the commission that. So to that extent, I don't mind helping, and I think it's appropriate that we do help. But, we try when we can to get money from defendants through restitution. But as Allison understands from working in the legal system, it's one thing for a judge to tell a defendant, you're paying this much money, and it's a whole other thing for the defendant to get their wallet out and actually start handing over cash. And most of the time, it never happens. In fact, in the overwhelming majority of time.
Do you guys have any questions?
Good.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.
I just want to thank you for the work that you and your team have done on jail bill.
Yeah,
Well,
That's
it,
something we're not used to seeing, and we're glad you're there.
well, I appreciate that, John. And, you know, I said before, I don't care what we use the money for. Let's just not use it to pay for 3 hots and a cot if we don't have to.
3 hots.
okay. Do you need a break before we start?
No, I'm good.
Okay, you good?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You guys ready? Alan, Angela?
You want to go first? I'll let you go first.
They don't take
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are y'all?
Hunky dory.
How you doing, huh?
Good, bud. Good. You see what the budget is, exactly what it was last year. And as for anything,
Contracted services went up 5,000.
yes, that's about where we're gonna be at, we think. Just where we're at right now.
Okay.
Lot of electrical service work being done, so
Something came up and I want to know the answer to it. Are we doing inspections on behalf of municipalities who are not reimbursing us for those inspections?
what we do is they take the permit, they send us a check. At the end of the year, we determine how much money we need, have used for that, and what we will continue to use until the permit's closed. And then we split that, rest of that money with the municipalities.
Municipalities. So they're paying for half of our services then?
But that doesn't include.
That doesn't include me. I get nothing. I do it.
Wait, so what half are we paying? Are we paying for like if they need a,
Electrical,
Contractor.
Pretty much electrical. I get nothing from the city for doing any of the inspections I do.
is this the case with all the municipalities or just certain ones?
It's to both of them.
So both up here, but not Montgomery, Smithers and.
No, we
Smith.
have no agreement with them.
So only Oak Hill and Fayetteville,
Correct.
and we have a written agreement with them.
Right. I've asked Ansted. Now, I went to all their councils and tried to, provide our service to them, explain the process to them, and they didn't want any more of it, so.
The valley has their own person.
So in other words, we pay you. And whatever money comes in, is split at 50-50, not minus what it costs for you.
Well, and also if we have to hire contractors, we're paying half for half of the contract work. It sounded like, is that right too?
Yeah.
Okay, can you get us a copy of those agreements?
I think I have.
Okay,
We sign them every year.
yeah.
Correct. They
Well, I
should be
definitely
coming
want to
due,
see.
July.
Those two municipalities make more money than the county does. So it's kind of hard
For
to,
them to just to fax the permit,
right.
still do, the plan review and all the inspections. So,
Okay. All righty, well, thank you. Good morning.
All right, my budget is pretty much the same except for the increase in the salary that you guys did in December. Everything else is pretty much the same. I still kept in the training and education because eventually they're gonna go back to live meetings for, once a year, they normally do a zoning meeting. So other than that, all the same.
Don't you like those straightforward ones?
It's a one-person show.
Yeah, I don't have any questions about this one. Do you guys?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Ruth's just over smiling like, oh, not like these.
But she knows something we don't. That's what, when she smiles.
Yeah.
Deliver pain.
Yep.
Okay. What I do with the agenda?
911 will not be done today because of that federal executive order relating to contractors.
Okay.
Kevin's waiting on answers from.
See you, Alan. Bye, Angela.
Are you good, Tom?
We'll call you.
Okay, that's fine.
But I'll also
Thank you.
point out I think it's the Park Service. Apparently wasn't aware of that executive order either. So they're meeting with their supervisors to get it interpreted. This one is the budget.
Well, you know my interpretation of it. Executive order is not the same as legislation.
Right.
I'm not sure
in
we're
this
gonna be.
instance, it is in addition, because it doesn't.
Okay, do you think there's any chance we can, well, we don't really need them to do this Meadow River Trail.
So Michael Taylor gave you his response, he said the same thing. What was it? Arbitration. Bill Hines may be on call.
I mean, basically,
Agreements.
Michael's issues were more or less similar, not the same as mine. It was just,
Yeah,
he doesn't like arbitration, and like I said earlier, you're not gonna be shocked if you found a lawyer that did like arbitration.
yeah, I don't like it.
But as a practical matter, it's also fairly standard. And then the other takeaway from Michael's email, as he pointed out, as I did, that the contract amount is not necessarily the contract amount.
Right.
Mechanisms whereby that cost is well known. Commission just gonna have to make judgment calls whether or not you want to accept the risk.
I mean, if we leave the language as it is, or if we enter the contract at all.
Yeah, you leave the contract as it is and sign off on it. There's mechanisms by which the cost of this project will be specified. But my guess is contractor's not going to, the contractor's not going to be willing to take that language out. I'd be shocked if they did.
And he's available by cell phone too, by the way.
Well, I think the answers are they need to remove the arbitration clause. And the Meadow River Trail Agreement.
You're supposed to get on 11:30.
Okay.
We'll break it over.
Yeah, we can if you want to. I mean, Kevin is, when is he gonna be ready?
It'll be next week.
Okay,
But
so-
she's meeting with her supervisors today.
Okay, so I move that we postpone the 911 budget presentation to the 23rd.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And there is this letter that we all thought we had approved but haven't. So can you get that on for the 23rd and update the date of the letter and everything?
Who has?
I do.
haven't.
That's right, you haven't, well, I'm at like in a, to be able to get it on letterhead. It's a Word doc.
I want to make sure.
Okay.
Well, I'll just say along the lines of the presentations we've had so far, just a comment for you guys to consider before we end up making final decisions. Like, if we, and Ruth, for you too, if there's a need to do a cost of living increase, we probably do need to do an across the board cost of living increase. We're going to grant something like that. I don't think it should be office by office if it's for cost of living, because everybody's cost of living is going up. I think we ought to distinguish that from merit-based raises. And I think what we need to know from the offices is once we decide, what we can afford to grant and what we can't, like, you might have to prioritize who gets raises.
I anticipated that way.
So that's kind of,
And as a practical matter, I think it makes more sense for department heads to be the bad guy or the good guy, as the case may be, rather than.
I'm fine either way. I'm a bad guy now, because I'm a politician, but I'll also say that I read what you said about, if Jennifer was granted the raise and then she later needed benefits that she would forego. I don't think that should be a consideration at all. If she needs benefits, she should get benefits.
Remember that
I think
last year.
I'll just tell you, I agree she's earned the raise. I don't know where the money is. But the fact that she's making what she's making compared to what she's doing and compared to the
Check it, and if we didn't
last
do it
person who
last
held her
year,
position who was doing similar
do it
things,
this year.
makes the amount you're asking for. I think that all of those things justify that raise for her.
Well, she also. She's essentially an administrative assistant to me because she handles.
See, I don't remember that.
She's a tremendous.
I remember,
And she handles the sports,
Um,
she handles essentially the sports staff,
I
Right.
remember
which saves me a considerable amount of
the
time.
buses,
I'm gonna put us in
which
break,
we need to get him in.
do a 5-minute
Or
break.
just send the,
But I kind of figured that you guys may make a decision that.
it's out.
All right, we are back and we are discussing the Meadow River Rail Trail contracts. Our attorney got back to us and made some recommendations. Pointed out a couple of provisions that would otherwise be of concern. The only one that would require a change in the Meadow River Trail Agreement is removing the arbitration clause. I agree with Anthony and our other attorney who had reviewed this, is that I don't like arbitration clauses. I feel like they limit your ability to flexibility to resolve things in a timely manner. So, so that's in the agreement. This one's a bid, this one's no legal issue. Under the Chapman contract, with respect to deviations in the scope of work, the recommendation was that we require written notice and written approval of any changes in the scope of work. I agree with that one as well, because that would keep things from getting nebulous there. It's pretty easy if it's a short notice thing. We can have a special meeting for that purpose.
I would always do that, but I'll have to get with Bill on that. Something he gave us.
And then we added a notice provision and a payment provision to the drafts. Do we have his final draft with us?
I have it in, if you vote on it, I'll print it and whatever.
Okay. Okay, well, it's my understanding I know we all replied back to the email that we agreed. So is there any objection to the changes recommended by our counsel and the prosecuting attorney upon reviewing his recommendations? Okay, then I move that we approve all of the contract amendments and additions that Michael Taylor from Bailey and Wyatt recommended and that our prosecuting attorney reviewed and approved.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so you guys can stamp for us those.
We approve you to stamp.
It's separate. And that ought to do it, right?
Can You're gonna give me some language that I need to put in here?
He's gonna give you the,
to remove the arbitration, I have the under, the red line one, so I just accept those changes and print that. And I think that's the one that has to go on the letterhead. The contractors requesting to provide architectural and engineering, construction rehabilitation services, is that the one that has to go on letterhead for you?
Yeah, that's the FEMA docs that they're required.
Ruth has
Well, as
all
long
of the
as you
changes.
approved it, we'll figure that out.
They'll sort the paperwork out with you. She
Okay,
has-
you can edit that. If there's language in the agreement between Chapman and the commission, you guys can go ahead and edit it.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, and our attorney already did a lot of that and sales
Okay,
tax
and you
already,
just-
so
You know,
Ruth has a
Sure.
copy. We've already approved it and
okay,
with
just
those changes.
send it to me and I'll get it signed off from, I don't have, I can't sign for my company, but I'll
Okay.
get my boss to do
Did
it.
Bill Hines have anything else that he wanted to talk to us about, Ruth, just to make sure, or Matt, or anything before we
They're
go
on
off?
there.
I'm unmuting them.
Just that, just for, before we,
Before we adjourn.
yeah.
The only other thing, changing the contract, I'll have to go back to the contractor and make sure he's okay with the changes. If he has any issue with it, then I'll have to come back to you.
Yeah, start with Ruth. And she'll reach out to our lawyers.
They're unmuted if you want to ask.
And she'll,
That's like
if
reading.
she
by
needs
the
us
way.
to decide something, she'll put it
Oh,
on
yeah.
Good.
the meeting for us.
I was just wondering if anybody had anything else to talk about before we adjourn.
Yes, please.
Okay.
If I may ask, in the contract, we are removing the arbitration section. That's Article 15.4 only, correct?
Just the arbitration clause is what Michael said.
In that one, yes.
Okay, and so the initial decision process and the mediation process remains untouched?
The only thing he had an issue with was arbitration.
Okay, great. Then for the FEMA requirements, that'll satisfy, at least we have a remedy in the process. So moving forward, the only other comment I can add to that is this project needs to move forward as soon as possible. So anything we can do to help move that along, increase communication. I will even extend an invitation to your staff and you all in future meetings with FEMA, especially the technical ones if you'd like, but we are most assuredly going to be under a mid-month reporting time frame from here on out. So we need to be prepared to answer a lot of questions quickly. So we'll rely on your authorities and your flexibility, if you will. Thank you.
Ruth, you got all that. You're okay.
Yeah, the changes have been made and Ruth is just gonna get them on the right letterhead or whatever
That's for me.
and then sign it.
So is there something that's going to go in place of arbitration? Like-
No, it's just, after, if it can't be settled by mediation, then it's going to go to court.
Okay, so is there language in there that stipulates that?
Well, Bill just referred to the mediation language in the first couple paragraphs, and then
Right.
after that, rather than go to arbitration, we're taking arbitration out. That's not another step. We're gonna go
Right.
straight. If mediation doesn't resolve it, then we'll go.
Okay. All right. So
And that's basically arbitration just puts another layer of binding. It takes the court's role out of it for the most part, because a lot of times in arbitration, it'll get settled. And you don't have the same liberties or, benefits as you would in court.
Okay, so I'll revise the contract per the edits that you're going to send me.
It's revised. We're gonna just
Okay.
give you one. That's why I'm saying,
Okay.
we have made the changes we want, and
Okay.
that's what we're signing off on.
Okay.
And Ruth
And I'll
has
send
to-
it to the contractor, and if he has any question.
Then just let Ruth know.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else?
Just hoping for a notice to proceed as soon as possible.
That's right.
Yeah,
Good
well,
step forward.
we approved everything today, Bill, so hopefully it'll be moving on.
Progress. That's great. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Third.